Well, I'm about 45 minutes early, but I'm testing new software. So if you're out there, hang in there and come back at 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern while I figure out what the heck is going on with this new Ecamm Live. Okay. Let's see if this is streaming on Facebook. Anybody? Oh, wow. Hello, Silal. Hey, you're on Facebook. Well, that is encouraging. I just mentioned that I'm really not live yet. Not dead yet either. I'm testing new software in anticipation of going live in 30 minutes or so. So hang in there or come back in 30 minutes. Sorry to do this to you, but I'm not sure that this is going to work. So, hey, thank you, pal. I'm just, man, I'm over my head in software, dude. That's great to hear. Thank you. Thank you very much. Glad you're there to be my sounding board. Now let's see what's happening over on YouTube. Where is my YouTube connection? Erg. Here we go. Oh. Are we live on YouTube? Live. There's the button. Okay. Oh. Well, I think we may be live on YouTube. Hey, Harold. Oh, hey, Randall, you're on YouTube. Okay. I'm using new software, so I'm trying to. I really am not going to start until 7:30, but I'm using some new software, so I'm just kind of testing to see if it works. So hang in there. Looks like a long delay on YouTube. Randall? Are you hearing me and seeing me okay? Harold Bankston's asking, how do I share this with my son-in-law? I think you just tell him to go to facebook.com/amazingribs and it should be live there somehow. You forgive me, I'm on the other side of the machine here. I don't know quite how it looks from the user side. Randall says yes. Okay, so we got Facebook and YouTube working. Those are the two important ones. I don't know about the tweeter yet. Okay. Well, we got Facebook and Twitter. We can visit for a few minutes until we get started. But first, I gotta get my glass of wine. Oh, there it is. I get the bottle. Okay. Well, I can see that YouTube has got quite a lag, but it shouldn't affect you if you're listening. Okay. Let's quit that. Get this. Okay. All right. Don't know why there's a lag on YouTube, but I guess it doesn't really matter. Tim Morgan is tuning in from New Zealand. Welcome, Tim. New Zealand is on my bucket list. One of our lead programmers is in New Zealand. You know, this is such a global community. I've got a really brilliant code guy, and he's in New Zealand. And, you know, aside from the time difference, it's great working with him. And of course, I've just seen so much beautiful travelogue and scenery. I'd love to go there, hang out with you. I like to swim and surf and climb mountains. Ryan Leal. That's an interesting question, Ryan. Ryan's asking, by the way, we're 30 minutes before official start time, but, you know, we'll have our conversation among friends. Ryan's asking about reverse sear, which is a technique I'm a huge fan of, where you warm the meat gently on. You divide your grill in half, and you have one side that is just warm from convection airflow, no burners on, no charcoal, and the other side, which has got all the charcoal and all the burners, and you just start out gently warming the meat on the indirect side, we call it, where it's low temperature, 225. The meat gently warms, but it warms evenly. If you cook directly over flame, you tend to get what I call a rainbow effect. The exterior is nice, dark and brown. Then you get a layer of tan, then a layer of pink, and then so you get this rainbow effect where it's rosy in the center. But if you reverse sear, if you start it at a low temperature and then sear it at the end with the lid up, so all the energy is hitting just one side, and you're searing. Now, you're not sealing in juices. Searing does not seal in juices, but searing makes flavor. Searing turns it brown. His question is, can it be too hot? Is there such a thing? I don't think so that I have encountered. Now, in theory, it could be too hot, but I don't think I've ever encountered a device that's capable of getting too hot. And if there was one, I've got it. I have a gas grill called a Heston, and it has an infrared burner that's, I don't know if you've ever seen these things. It looks like a honeycomb, only the honeycomb's very small. And, gee, I wonder if I've got a picture of these. I could share this if I could get a picture. Let's see. Get this microphone out of my way. Let's see. Let's go to my illustrations folder. Come on. Oh, I see what's going on. Uh-huh. All right. You want to be that way?
I'm not sure I understand.
My watch is talking to me. Stick with me here. No, it's not easily accessible. I'll find it. But this infrared burner, it's ceramic, and it's the type of thing that the really high end steakhouses use, and it's capable of over 1,000 degrees, and I've never had a problem with it. It's really good at searing, and all this debate between charcoal and gas. The big issue there is that charcoal gets a lot more infrared than most gas grills. So it's better at searing than most gas grills. So if you can get a gas grill that generates massive amounts of infrared, you can't taste the difference between it and charcoal. Hey, we got a lot of folks showing up early. Gosh, I logged in early because I'm testing some new software here, but I'm using a program called Ecamm Live, and it's it right now is Mac only, but it's really great broadcasting, and they just released a new version of it today, and so it's like I'm not going to try the new version on my monthly live broadcast because if it screws up, I'm going to piss a lot of people off, and of course, being the geek that I am, I had to try it, and it seems to be working. Hey, everybody. Hey, Dog-Faced Pony Soldier from the Pitmaster Club is here. Good to see you, Dog-Faced. We have 2,000 pages on our website that are free, but we have a separate section called the Pitmaster Club, which is $35 a year. And it's just got all kinds of cool stuff in there. And we've got almost 17,000 paid members. And it, of course, is our most important source of revenue. But it's also got really cool people like Dog-Faced Pony Soldier, who's with us tonight. Cool J77 is saying, I've been an advocate for reverse sear as well as frequent flipping. Do I have a preference between the two methods based on thickness? No, I think they really go hand in hand. The key here is, I was just describing reverse sear a minute ago. It's a core concept, and I'm not going to do it like every 5 minutes. Maybe I'll get to it again. Hey, Jim Tortorelli, I know you. Reverse sear is a technique for gently warming the meat first so that it's even temperature throughout, and then searing it at the end, which is backwards from everything we've been taught. But when you apply a little understanding of physics, you understand why it works. Because if you hit it with high energy at first, then that energy takes its time going to the center, and you get a rainbow effect of temperatures and color. But if you warm it gently, you get an even color throughout, and then sear it at the end. And searing, of course, is the way you get great Maillard reaction flavors on the surface. The idea of flipping frequently, and again, this goes in the face of everything you've been told. Everybody tells you to put the meat down, don't flip it. Well, when that happens, the energy, and I use the word energy in preference to heat because heat can be confusing, but it's energy. The energy pounds on the surface and slowly works its way to the center. And it's slow because meat is full of water. It's about 75% water. Water is a good insulator. So it takes time for the heat to work its way down. Now, if you leave it sitting over a flame or charcoal, it builds up energy in that surface like a capacitor. And that also transmits and starts to overcook the center. But if you flip it, now you're putting the energy on the other side, and the energy that's built up in the top part, in the if you think of it like a capacitor, it starts to bleed off into the cool air. You got the lid up, so it bleeds off. So it doesn't go down into the meat as much. It bleeds off, and you flip again, and so what you're doing is you're working on the surface, pounding it with the surface for a minute or two, flip, minute or two, pound on the surface, flip. So you become the human rotisserie. You're giving it hot, cool, hot, cool. And that's the same thing that a rotisserie does. It's what they call a sinusoidal wave. It's got two sinuses, two bumps and valleys. And so when you do that constant flipping, frequent flipping, like every 2 minutes maybe, you're really pounding the surface, working on the surface. Then you flip, and a lot of that energy bleeds off. So you're protecting the interior. And so the whole concept of reverse sear, and I've written about this at length, and if you're just popping in and you're missing some of this conversation, go to AmazingRibs.com and type reverse sear in the search box. And I'm finishing up my new book this week, and I'm talking about it again. But it's a really core concept, and it's shocking how many people haven't caught on to it yet. But it absolutely works, and it's just really simple, basic physics, and especially if you think of heat as energy. So you're using when you cook it on the indirect side with convection airflow, you're cooking the interior more than the exterior. And then you move it over to the hot side, now you're cooking the exterior more than the interior. It's kind of like sous vide. And I suspect most of you know what that is. Jim Tortorelli, we had a brief correspondence, and I think I have your note to me from the other day here that I've been meaning to respond to. I have 1 week left to finish the first draft of my book. My February 1st deadline for first draft. So I'm just kind of not answering a lot of emails, and I've been, and we're not, I normally go an hour and a half. I started a half hour early. We'll probably only go to 8:30 tonight instead of 9 o'clock as usual, because I got to work on the book. But if anybody's been following me, you know that this book is about 3 years overdue. But I've signed with HarperCollins. I'm on a deadline. They're paying me a bunch of money, and I got to meet deadlines. Rich Conley, I know you. Loving flank steak, but looking at pictures of bavette on Snake River Farm site, and the picture looks 2 to 3 times thicker than flank steaks. I get questions. Yeah, Rich, I don't think so. Now, there is an interesting phenomenon going on. Cattle are bigger. Used to be a rib roast or a rib primal, was enough for 7 people or so. Now it's huge. Cattle are bigger, so it's conceivable that the flank steak on Snake River Farms, if you can pull up the URL, Rich, and post it here, I'll go take a quick look. But flank steak is rarely, it's got a fatter end and a skinny end. It kind of tapers like a chicken breast, but it's not a huge difference. The fat end rarely is more than 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches. Often it's only 1 inch. The skinny end tapers down to about maybe 3/4 inch, so it's not a huge taper. But that's handy because often when you're now a normal flank steak can feed 4 people, and almost always there's somebody who wants it a little more well done. So you got the skinny end for them, and the fat end for me, who likes it medium rare to rare. So, but I'm a huge fan of flank steak, Rich. It is not as expensive as ribeye and strip steak, and it really packs a lot of flavor. If you'll go to AmazingRibs.com and search on flank steak, or to YouTube and my YouTube channel, YouTube/AmazingRibs, you'll find a video. Let's see if I can find that. Okay, I'm pushing the technology here, but this is fun. Let's see if I can find. Here we go. And stick with me. I'm going to show you a video if I can manage to find it. Okay. All right, I'm hitting the search button and nothing's happening. Oh, there it is. Stand by. There it is. Okay. Now, let's see if I can show it to you. Stand by. All right, stop the video. And now let's get back over here and see if I can get the screen. Yeah. Okay, we're cooking with gas here. Okay. Now let's see what happens there. All right. Here we go. Where's the audio? I'm working on the audio, people. Oh, well, there we go. Here, I've got a stack of them under my deck. So we start with a Weber kettle, we clean out all the ash, and we throw some newspaper in the bottom. And then we pile on the grapevine cuttings. These are all a year old, they're dry, they're crisp, they're crunchy, and I cram as many as they can fit in there. I try to get them away from the edges so that I can put the cooking surface, the grate, on top, and jam them all down in there. And this is going to not only create a great deal of heat, but smoke. And as we know, the best flavored smokes are from hardwoods and fruitwoods and nutwoods. So we're going to get a really hot, well over 1,000-degree fire. I light it from below, get the newspaper lit, and within just a few minutes, you can see it starts to ignite. And when it ignites, holy cow, it ignites. Now, don't panic. I'm a good foot and a half or so from that railing there, and a good 2 or 3 feet from the house. And there's not a lot of wind today, so I'm not endangering my house, and there's always a fire extinguisher handy. But you're going to see some serious flames. And the thing is you're working against the clock. This thing flames up, and in less than 5 minutes, those big old monster flames burn down, and you have these little embers in the bowl of the grill, and that's what you want to cook on. Now that flame is too large and too hot to cook on right now, and it'll deposit soot on the food. So I wait for it to die down. It takes only a few minutes, and there we got a decent size, and on goes the flank steak. And I use flank steak for this technique because flank steak is really good when cooked hot and fast, and it's not real thick, because once this dies down to embers, the embers only last about 5 minutes. So you've got at most 10 to 15 minutes of cooking time available at extremely high heat. And you get all this wonderful flavor. You build this incredible crust. A quick question here. Are you getting the audio? Will somebody tell me if the audio is coming through? Somebody type yes or no. I'm still struggling with technology here. Somebody tell me if the audio is coming through. Yay. Okay, Rich says yes. Okay, here we go. After a couple of minutes, we take a look. We've got some nice color. We flip it over. Now that was probably no more than 4 or 5 minutes elapsed time there. And we're going to give it 4 or 5 minutes more on this side, get a good sear. Now, a lot of times I don't have to put a cover on it, but I noticed that the vine twigs are burning down. So I put the cover on just to capture a little heat and push some energy down into it, roast it a little more. So the cover went on for about 4 or 5 minutes is all. And then we pop it off and we check the temperature.
And look at there, 134. That's perfect medium rare, 130 to 135. And that was in the thin end. You know, flank steak tends to have a thin end and a thick end. So look what I do. I take the thin end and I hover it out over the cool air, and the thick end remains over the embers. And look, those embers are down. There's not much left. It's still very hot down in there, but we're almost done cooking. And a total elapsed time now is maybe 10, 15 minutes. We check the thick end, and there it is, 132. We're done. We take this baby off, and look at it. There's nothing but ash. Again, total elapsed time, 15, 20 minutes now at the most. That's the end result. Look at that gorgeous color. Beautiful mahogany color, edge to edge, a little bit of char. We put a cut into it. Now, you always cut flank steak across the grain. See the grain running from left to right, and I'm cutting across the grain, and that way you'll have an easier chew. And there it is, perfect medium rare to rare in the center. It's going to carry over cook another few degrees. That's the final product there, ready for eating. Cooking the vigneron method over twigs from AmazingRibs.com. Come visit our website. Check out our Pitmaster Club. Sign up for our email newsletter.
Okay, well, that worked. Did you guys catch that? I mean, isn't that cool? Now, I ain't just using grapevines, but you could use twigs and sticks from hardwood, you know, an oak tree, or I just happen to have a number of grapevines growing along my fence, and it's a technique that's popular in France. They call it Sarmon, and in Spain too, because every year they go out into the vineyards and they have to cut the vines back severely, prune them severely. And they have this big, huge pile of twigs. They're rarely thicker than a pen or a pencil. And that's what I cooked here, if you saw. Just piled them into the Weber kettle, set them on fire. They go up in huge flames within 3-4 minutes. The flames kind of die down, and you've only got like 10 minutes to cook before they just turn to ash. And so it's perfect for flank steak, and the flavor is just awesome. So, fun stuff. Okay, it looks like all of you guys could hear it. I don't know if it's coming through the computer or I've got an external set of speakers here. Troy Conine, making pastrami. How long do you brine a 14 to 16 pound brisket? And how long do you soak it in water to desalinate? I don't know those numbers off the top of my head, Troy rather, but if you're using my recipe on my page, it'll answer those questions. It should. Usually desalinating just, depends on everything depends on thickness. I see this. Where's that picture? Okay. Here we go again. We're trying to share stuff. Let's see. I don't want that. Let's find the manuscript for my new book. And find thickness. Okay. All right, there we go. Okay, I'm going to zoom in and rotate. Oops. Okay, stand by, everybody. All right, whoops. This is tricky for a klutz. Now, let's see if I can screen share. Stand by. Okay, there we go. Now, you're looking at, on the left, a 10-pound prime rib roast. And on the right, a 5-pound prime rib roast. And they're both 4 inches thick. Guess what? They both take the same time to cook. Now, every damn cookbook in the world says cook it X number of minutes per pound. So if you use that formula, the one on the left is going to take twice as long as the one on the right. But that's wrong. It's the thickness. The heat hits the surface and penetrates. And it's a lot of water in there, so it takes time. But it's the temperature in the center that determines how done it is. Medium rare is 130 to 135, period. That's it. So it takes time for the energy to move from the outside to the center. And the weight has nothing to do with it. It's the thickness. It's all about thickness. And that's a core concept that we got to understand. Once we understand that thickness determines cooking time. So, for your question about how long does it take for anything, it depends on how thick. If you've got a really thick with a bit, a holes packer with the both muscles on top of each other, it could take a while. But usually 6 to 8 hours is enough to desalinate. How long does it take for it to cure? There's a formula, a calculation, because again, it takes time for the cure to penetrate. So all that, it should be on the page, and if not, there's a link to the page that'll help you. If you can't figure it out, then drop me a note via email. You can reach me through the website. Rich says, not sure if one can over desalinate. Yeah, it's really interesting. We've learned, like with our bacon recipe and any of our curing recipes, that do you like blondes, brunettes, or redheads? Everybody has a preference for salt. How much salt is right? And you watch these cooking shows on TV, and the judges say, well, you didn't season it enough. They mean salt. You didn't give it enough salt. Well, it's not enough for you, Judge A, but Judge B thinks it's fine, and Judge C thinks it's too salty. Everybody's tolerance for salt is really different. There's no such thing as exactly right. And it really ticks me off, these chefs that say, no salt shaker on the table, because I season it perfectly in the kitchen. Well, you're seasoning it for your taste, chef, but my tastes are different. I like salt. I want more. Give me the goddamn salt shaker. Height of insolence. Dan Mancuso, did I start earlier or at a different time? Dan, I don't think you've missed. No, Dan, I was trying some new software, and I tried it early, and I was testing it, and people started dropping in, and so what the hell? I'm a wind-up doll. You get me wound up, and I just start going. So we started like a half hour early. I'm sorry, Dan. I know you're always here and you're always on time, but we're just yakking. And usually I start off with a theme, and I really don't have much of a theme this month. I hadn't thought about it. I guess tailgating, but I think we kind of did New Year's and tailgating earlier. I'm hoping I can get to watch the games this weekend, because last year these two games were fantastic. But my deadline for the first draft of the book is Wednesday, so I don't know. Could be rough. Narcisio Nick. Hey, from Twitch. Have I ever dabbled in dry curing hams? Oh, you've done my bacon recipe. Hams. I haven't done dry curing for a couple of reasons. And, of course, you go to Italy, and prosciutto is all dry cured. But I really think that for home curing, wet curing is better. First of all, when you dissolve salt and curing salts in solution, they're evenly distributed among the water. So when you put the ham in the water, it's submerged and surrounded by an evenly distributed saline solution. Dry curing, you rub the outside and you pour salt, and and pink salt, the sodium nitrite on the outside. And you can get hot spots. You can get spots where it's more concentrated than others. And you got to really be careful about how you do that. And you could overdo it. And my formulae are designed to get you there. So it takes the weight of the ham and the thickness of the ham, and it calculates just how much of the curing salt you need and how long you need it. And this curing calculator that we have on our site, and we're building it into the individual recipes now, is unique. Professor Blonder, our physicist and food scientist at Boston University, created it for us. There's nothing like it in the world, and it really works. And it's the key here is to make sure it's safe, because sodium nitrite, which is the preservative, if you use too much of it, you can get a tummy ache. I don't think it's going to kill anybody, but we just don't like giving people tummy aches. So we use this curing calculator. So we don't do any dry curing. All of our curing is done in a water bath. It takes up more space, but it's more efficient, and it's safer. TR Doc 21 says he has the process is kind of weird, because then first you kind of load it up with the curing salt and regular salt, and then you put it in a water bath to soak some of it out. And I know that sounds contrapuntal, but it's the best way to do it. And he says he's done too much desalination, and it was bland. I've not heard that before. Dan, we talked last month, I guess, about lamb shoulder, and he's saying that I gave good advice. It was delicious. I love lamb. Hey, we are officially at start time in just under a minute. So let's hold on just a second here for people who are arriving on time. Got a nice crowd here, arrived early. And we'll run our intro video, and then we'll take up where we left off. So hang in there. 20 seconds. Oh, I didn't put the countdown clock up. Oh, man. You know, this technology is harder than cooking brisket. Okay, here we go.
I need ribs to ease my day. I need to find time to cook them right. My papa said, can't hurry ribs. No, you just have to wait. He said, ribs.
And now at your service, here to help you cook and eat like royalty, is the Barbecue Whisperer and hedonism evangelist from AmazingRibs.com, the planet's biggest and baddest barbecue and grilling website, Meathead.
Boiled slabs must I stand before I find the crunch to let me live again. Right now the only thing that keeps me hanging on is a memory of smoking it down to the bone. I remember Papa said you can't hurry ribs.
Well, there we are. We're back. By the way, that's my niece singing. Okay. Well, welcome back. I got a little early start tonight while I was fiddling with the software, and we got rolling early. And I don't have my normal monologue topical discussion to start things off. We just jumped right in with questions and answers, and we've had a few already, but I'm here for you. So hit me with whatever questions, problems you're running to. I'm scrolling back to see if I've missed anything. TR.21 wants to know if I've ever traveled to Europe. If so, what's your favorite area of Europe for scenery and for food? I had a previous life, previous to barbecue. I was once the wine critic for the Washington Post and the Chicago Tribune, nationally syndicated. I was even in El Nuevo Dia in San Juan, Puerto Rico. So I got to travel the world for business and eat great meals at Chateau d'Yquem and Chateau Margaux, and then for pleasure, my wife and I have done some traveling. Absolutely, without question, my two favorite places in Europe are Paris and Barcelona, and it's hard to choose between the two of them. They're just magical. There's something special about both of them. The history, the romance, and of course the food. And I tell you, when it comes to cooking, the people in Barcelona have, the people in Paris have nothing over the people in Barcelona. I have had marvelous, well, all over Europe. I mean, in fact, we went to Japan once, where food is practically worshipped. I went to the marketplace, the seafood marketplace, which is like 20 football fields or bigger in size. Tuna is stacked like cordwood. Oh my God. The respect that the Japanese have for food is unparalleled. So yeah, for scenery and for food, gosh, Tuscany is just absolutely the prettiest part of the world, with some of the most marvelous food. Start in Firenze, Florence. I don't know if you can get direct flights from the United States into Firenze. Probably can. Fly into Rome and drive up there, or take the train. And there's some nice B&Bs. We got a B&B right on the central square, and happened to be there when the Nouveau or Novello Chianti came out right in the middle of November, and there was this tremendous ceremony, and and they were handing out free wine and cheese, and the people were dancing in the streets and drunken, and beautiful women, and oh my goodness, it was just, Italy is, there's a unbridled sensuality to Europe that we don't have in this country. There's still a great deal of puritanical attitudes, and it's just wonderful. So, but as far as beauty is concerned, I can't think of any place more beautiful than Tuscany. And you can, if you can get like a few friends, you can rent a farmhouse with a kitchen, and you can take day trips. And we've stumbled into a wine fair and festival, or just stay in a B&B and have them cook for you, whatever. Are you planning a trip? Okay. I just want to scroll back to the very beginning, because I've been rambling, and I have been in an organized fashion looking at the questions to make sure I haven't ignored somebody. Tim Morgan from New Zealand. How about that? I'm looking over these questions to make sure I'm not missing anything. Hey, Jim Tortorelli, we got to check this out. I married Tortorello, and there are Tortorellas, and they're all in the Chicago area, and we got to be related. Cool J77 is asking, we were talking earlier about flip over the direct flame. And he's saying, without using reverse sear, if you have a skinny piece of meat, like under an inch, then you can't really reverse sear it very well. Anything under an inch, and you saw that with the flank steak. It's about an inch and a quarter, direct heat. And yes, flip is really a good technique for that. Again, you're treating the surface and the interior separately. So yeah, strong fan of constantly flipping. Okay, we have somebody trying to sell me something over there. How about that? Twitch is weird, man. Not speaking to Narcio, Nick. But boy, some of the other Twitchers. Yeah, and also, TR Doc, the food in Tuscany is just marvelous. And in Tuscany, you're just a day trip from either coast, from the Adriatic and the beaches. And, oh, yeah, you just, yep. And that's the Chianti district. I call it Tuscany, but that's Chianti district. And also, great olive oil comes from that area. Okay. Jerry Dauphiné is asking, how often do I do these? This is once a month, the last Thursday of every month at 8:30 Eastern Time, barring mishap. Last month I had some minor surgery and was unable to make it, but usually, and I've been doing it for years, last Thursday of the month, 8:30 Eastern Time. Oh, so you aren't asking an innocent question, T-Rock. You hit 5 countries in 2 weeks this summer. It was great. Yeah. And Barcelona was incredible. And you did enjoy Paris more than expected. How can you not enjoy Paris? Yeah, Firenze and Bologna, which is just an hour north of Firenze. That's an academic center, and it's always fun to go to college towns. There's all kinds of fun stuff, string quartets in the middle of the afternoon on the square. Yeah. All right, I think I have reached the end of the list of questions, and we still have about 40 minutes to go, so hit me, guys. Let's see if there's something on my mind that I can tell you about. Let me just go get a look at my book manuscript and see if I've been writing about something really interesting to share. Well, you know what I've been playing with lately? I've been playing with Koji. Now, Koji is really interesting. It's a mold, and it's used to make soy sauce, to make sake, to make a number of fermented products in Japan and China. It's typically grown on rice, and you can go to Amazon, or if you're in a city like Chicago or someplace where there's Asian markets, you can buy it essentially 2 forms. You can buy Koji Rice. Stand by. I'm not abandoning. I'm going to go get some stuff to show you. Okay, I'm back. So, you get this mold. It's an aspergillus. It's a, don't freak out. Mold is, you can't make beer without funguses. You can't make wine without funguses. Yeast. This is Koji Rice. And it's like a rice cake. It's really hard, but it has been inoculated with the Koji mold. And what you can do is you break this open and crumble it, and you can press it on top of a piece of meat, like a steak. And then you put it in the fridge and you go away. And the mold alters, there's enzymes involved. It alters the proteins and affects the flavor. And you get something akin to an aged piece of beef. But it has a new flavor. And it's a really nice flavor. It slightly tenderizes. And a number of restaurants are starting to fiddle with this. It's okay, but you face this issue of all this rice stuck onto the surface of the meat after it's done aging. All you gotta do is age it for like a week, and then you gotta wash it off, and it's kind of goofy. But a lot of people are doing it. If you've bumped into Guga, Guga is a big fan of it on the internet. There's another version of it, and that's called shiokoji. And shiokoji is that rice that I just showed you. Both of these I bought on Amazon. This is just called koji, the dry stuff. And shiokoji is the dry stuff soaked in water, warm water, and you soak it for like a week, and then you can stick it in the fridge. And here's homemade shiokoji that I've done. So this is the dried rice soaked in warm water and then aged for about a week and then put in the fridge. And with shiokoji, since it's sort of a paste or a liquid, you can spread it on meat, turkey, beef, and then when you're done, you can just cook it up, or if you want, rinse it off. And I was with my wife for, what was her birthday, I think. We went out for her birthday and went to a really interesting restaurant in the Chicago area where he had used shiokoji on butter. And it completely altered the flavor, but not completely. It significantly altered the flavor. It still tasted like butter, but it had almost a slightly cheesy character, almost a Parmigiano Reggiano character in the background. It was marvelous, and I've done side-by-side tasting of shiokoji butter and really high-end Kerrygold butter, and it's better. It's just amazing. And if you want to play with it, go to Amazon and get this shiokoji in the bottle, so you don't have to mess with anything. It goes in the fridge, and just take a stick of butter and squirt this stuff all over. Put it back in the fridge. If you want to moosh it up, go ahead, and come back in a week. Wow. I talked about this on Greg Rempe's podcast. Greg, if you're not familiar with Greg Rempe and his podcast, it's really good. It's every Tuesday night, and I show up once a month there, and we were talking about it over there. And he's out of Cleveland, and it turns out there's a guy in Cleveland who wrote a whole book on koji. And he went over to visit with the guy who wrote the book, and he gave him lemonade made with lemons that had been treated with koji, and Greg went nuts over it. So it's a really interesting flavor enhancer to play with, and it's going to be in my new book. Unfortunately, it won't be out till next spring, by which time everybody will be doing koji. But that's okay. It's really fascinating stuff. And you can buy this shiokoji, and I recommend this rather than this, because this stuff you gotta soak in water and then you put it in. You can buy. It's a little more expensive this way, but you're not going to use a whole lot. If you are going to use a whole lot, then you buy this stuff and make your own. But play with an experiment. I never would have thought of putting it on lemons to make lemonade. I don't know all the possibilities, but it does some marvelous things to food, and it's a lot of fun, and that's something that's in my new book. Let's see what else. See if I've got some new questions here. T-Rock is back and asking, I do a lot of things with smaller cookers like the Weber Smoky Mountain. Do I do much offset cooking? I've been getting into this a lot, and I'm currently building my own large offset. Okay, you're a loony. No. Offsets are really outstanding devices. And yes, I've worked with the cheap Home Depot offsets for under $200, and I've cooked on Jambos, which are $10,000. I did own a Lang 48 reverse sear for a number of years, and I gave it to my sous chef as a going away gift when he left me. Now, why did I do that? Offsets, if you're not familiar with them, well, doggone it, I've got this. Let's see. I've got this open here. Stand by. In case you're not familiar, there we go. Nope, that's not it. There we go. Okay, here we go again with some screen sharing. Let's see. Getting really high tech here with the screen sharing. All right. These are two versions of the offset cooker. Whoa, that didn't work. Now I've gone and done it. Stand by. Oh. There is the infrared burner on my Heston I was talking about earlier. You can see it's like honeycomb. See it down in there? And this sucker is over 1,000 degrees. And a lot of restaurants use this for searing steaks. Not many grills come with it. Okay, back to the offset smokers. You're looking at a Horizon through flow. Now on the right, I don't if you guys can see the mouse. I'm mousing over it. Just again, curiosity here. If somebody can tell me, can you see my mouse as I'm pointing at something, so I can learn my technology? But on the right, there's a little barrel. On the left, there's a bigger barrel. The barrel on the right is your firebox, and that's where the charcoal or the logs go. On the left is the food chamber, and that's where the food goes. Now, this is set a little bit low because there's an opening between the two, and the smoke goes in and travels through. It actually rises up and travels through, crossing the meat and out the chimney. And it's called an offset because the firebox is set off just a notch. These are really good for cooking with logs. And cooking with logs is really tricky. The easiest thing in the world is cooking with gas. Charcoal's a little trickier. It's all about temperature control and smoke control. And it's really hard to get the right flavor out of logs, because if you choke the logs down too much, if it doesn't get enough oxygen, if you close the ducts, the vents, so that it will cool down, because if you're cooking too hot and you want to cool it down, it's going to produce a lot of unpleasant flavor byproducts of the combustion. Combustion flavors are best when there's a lot of oxygen going to your logs or your charcoal or your wood chunks or chips. A lot of people tell me that they throw wood chips on the fire and they go up in flame and they want more smoke. Don't worry, you want it to go up in flame. When wood burns with flame, it's burning off the unpleasant byproducts of combustion. You want to see flame. When you're seeing lots of smoke, those are byproducts of incomplete combustion. And even though it goes, wow, look at all the smoke I'm getting, you're not getting the best tasting smoke. The best tasting smoke is called blue smoke,
It's called blue smoke because it's almost invisible, has a slightly blue tint, and that's because the particles are so fine that they don't refract light. When the particles are bigger, they refract light, and you see white smoke, or yellow smoke, or brown smoke, or God forbid, black smoke. So, the problem of controlling the oxygen moving through that combustion chamber, okay, Rich says he doesn't see my mouse, thanks. The combustion chamber on the right, moving through the food chamber and out the chimney, is really tricky, and you really have to work at it to get the right amount of temperature and smoke, and it's just tricky. And T-Rock, if you're building one, that's the easy part. Learning how to use it is going to be the tricky part. And the answer is on ideal circumstances, you want to leave the chimney and the door to the firebox almost wide open. And if you do, you run the risk of running hot. And so the trick is to have a small fire that is burning clean, hard. Now that I'm showing you one. That's a through flow. Now this is, somebody asked if I had one. This is a reverse flow. Can you see what's different? The chimney is on the right, not on the left. Up above, on the horizon, the chimney's on the left. So the smoke is moving from the firebox through the cooking chamber out the chimney. On the one underneath, which is a Lang, which is the one that I had, the smoke runs under the food. There's actually a duct that the smoke runs through under the food, and it comes up on the far end, and then it goes into the food chamber and out through the chimney. So it makes an S-shaped travel through there, and the temperature is more even in the food chamber, and the smoke gets over more things. Some people swear by one, some people swear at the other. I think this type of system, it's called a reverse flow, is the better system. And Lang makes some pretty reasonably priced, high quality, thick steel, great airflow control for a offset. So if you're fiddling, if you really want, now why do you really want to cook with wood? I'll tell you why. The best barbecue I've ever had in my life has been cooked over wood. I mean, I've had mighty good barbecue cooked with gas, with charcoal, not so much with electrical, but with wood, it just is outstanding. And the really tip-top pit masters in competition who cook with wood win. Okay. Randy Meyer, what are my thoughts on removing the membrane on beef ribs? Don't. If you try to remove that membrane, the meat's going to fall off the bone. And the ugly thing is that membrane is thick and it's rubbery and it's no fun. You just got to cook with it on there, and if you want, you can put it over a hot flame, and that will get it kind of leathery, which is kind of interesting to eat. But mostly you just eat the meat and let the membrane go. And if you ever done short ribs in a crock pot or something, you know what I'm talking about, that membrane. But you just need it. If you take it off, the meat falls off. Now, that could be okay. You peel off the membrane, take the meat off the bone, and you can do ribs boneless. And that works out perfectly fine. The bone does not add. This is another thing. It's another classic myth. Bones are made out of calcium. Calcium has no real flavor. Now, the marrow has flavor, but the marrow can't get through the calcium. Now, if you take a rib bone, like a beef rib bone, and you throw it in a crock pot and fill that crock pot up with wine and onions and beef stock and let it stew and simmer as they do in South France,
oh my, it will dissolve some of the flavor from the marrow and pull it out into the sauce and flavor the meat, and it's marvelous. But if you're cooking it in dry heat, if you're cooking it in an oven, and a smoker is an oven, then there's no way for the marrow to touch the meat. It can't get there. So the bone is not doing anything other than it's a heat shield. It's like the heat shield on the space shuttle. It blocks heat. Now, there are cases when you might want that. If you're doing something like on a Weber Smoky Mountain where the heat's coming up from below, you might want that bone to block heat. But you can remove that bone, and now you have something very much like a brisket. You've got beef rib meat, boneless, which tastes and feels and cooks a lot like brisket. So if you want to take the membrane off, you might as well just take the meat off the bone. Then you take the bones and you simmer them in water along with some carrots and some onions and some celery. And now you're going to make yourself a beef stock because it will dissolve the marrow and get flavor from the marrow. And now you're making a really great beef stock, which you can use for a gravy or for rice, couscous, all kinds of fun stuff. Ryan Strait, do I prefer regular cheese or high-temp cheese and sausage? I plan to make some jalapeno cheddar sausage in a couple of weeks. I gotta confess, I've made a bunch of sausages. I've never made cheese sausage. There's something in me that considers that heretical. And that's stupid, I know, because I am a heretic. I break every rule under the sun. But for me, a martini is strictly gin and vermouth and not even vodka. And don't talk to me about chocolate or mint martinis. So sausages with cheese in it have just never caught my fascination. But I gotta admit, I've had a couple that were really good. My instincts is that I'd want a cheese that melts. So that, when you bite into it, it's kind of runny and juicy and adds that jalapeno flavor. I don't know. See what the pros are doing. T-Rock, I've used a pellet smoker for years, Traeger, then Yoder, and a vertical propane. Okay, so you've been around, and I'm using a borrowed large offset on a real wood, and the difference has been astounding. Yeah, the difference is astounding. Real wood, but get control of it. Dan Mancuso, read your sous vide ebook, and I'm thinking about getting into it. Do you think it's something worth doing? Well, that's a good question, Dan. I have 6 ebooks out there. They're all available on Amazon for $3.99 each. And you get all 6 of them free if you join our Pitmaster Club for $35 a year, plus a bunch of other freebies. So it's worth it to join just to get the ebooks. One of the ebooks is about sous vide Q, which is sous vide and then barbecue. And sous vide, and on the chance that some of you still haven't heard about it, sous vide is a really interesting technique for cooking foods precisely. You get this device. It looks like an old-fashioned flashlight. It's a tube. And you put it in a bucket of water, and it warms the water to exactly the temperature you set it. So let's say we're going to do a ribeye steak. Ribeye steak is at its best 130 to 135 medium rare. That's when it's most tender and most juicy. And also at around 131, bacteria can't grow anymore. So what you do is you put that steak in a Ziploc bag and you lower it gently into the water so that the water squeezes out all the air. And then you zip it up. And so now the meat is almost in contact with the water, but there's a plastic barrier in the way. So when you warm it, the juices are not going to get out into the water. They're contained within the bag. And now you put it in that water bath, and you heat that water to exactly 131, which is medium rare and it kills all bacteria. And you leave it in there for hours. And because it takes hours for it to get evenly cooked and also for it to pasteurize and kill all bugs. So you leave it there for 3-4 hours. And when you're done, You pull it out and you have really tender, really juicy meat, but it's really ugly because it hasn't been seared. It doesn't have the flavor from the Maillard reaction, which is what you get when you hit it with infrared radiation. So what you now do, or conduction, what you now do, what a lot of people do, is they just got a cast iron pan, really hot, and throw that steak, pat it dry first, throw that steak into the cast iron pan, and get a good brown sear on both sides, and bada bing, bada boom, you're done, and you got a really good steak. Or you move it to the grill where you've got a really good hot infrared flame, and you sear it that way. And I have a technique that I've called the afterburner, where you actually sear it on top of a charcoal chimney, which is well over 1,000 degrees, and that's a great technique. So sous vide, the issue with sous vide is I've done side by side a sous vide ribeye against a reverse sear ribeye, and this kind of distills it all down. And I think that's in the book there, Dan. The sous vide version is more tender and more juicy, but the reverse sear is more flavorful. And the difference in tenderness and juicy is minor, but it's noticeable. So the question is, on a ribeye, it's pretty tender and juicy as it is. Can you put up with a little bit more chew for more flavor? Or is tender, so it's, again, brunettes, blondes, and redheads, what's your preference? Do you want really tender, really juicy? Go sous vide. If you want more flavor, go reverse sear. But there are some other things. I mean, it does salmon really well. I'll tell you one thing I've been doing with it lately. I've been pasteurizing eggs. I married a PhD microbiologist who is a food safety expert, just retired from FDA. And she put the fear of God in me when it comes to raw eggs or undercooked eggs. Now, I still make sunny side up eggs with runny yolks, but if you can actually, and I've got the technique for that in my new book, you can actually pasteurize an egg in a sous vide bath. You don't need the plastic bag. You just put the eggs right in the water, set the temp for, I think it's 140 or 145, and go away for 45 minutes or so. Come back. The egg looks just like a regular egg. The whites are runny. The yolk is yellow and runny, but it's pasteurized. So it's safe. You can use it for eggnog. You can use it for whatever you want and feel comfortable. And I use it for making hollandaise and béarnaise. Yeah, there's use for it. And the price of these sous vide machines has come down. The top of the line is the one called Joule, Joule, and it sells for about, I think, $150 to $200. But there's less expensive models out there. So if you're thinking about experimenting with it, Dan, maybe pick up one of the cheaper models and play with it. Or go for the top of the line. What the hell? You'll use it. You'll absolutely use it. But I know when it first came out, I was doing everything sous vide. And I've just kind of don't need it anymore. Jerry Dauphiné, we're wearing shorts from Fleming Island, Florida. I'm a Gator. Class of 71. I'm that old, kids. Went to Merritt Island High School, University of Florida, 71. And I'm not sure where Fleming Island is. I think it's over on the West Coast. But those are my old stomping grounds. Oh, so T-Rock Doc 21, you're a member of the Pitmaster Club. Well, glad to hear you. Glad to see you. Good question, CBBQ. Since I must cook my hamburgers from a frozen steak, and I would love to know why, but it's okay. You can cook from a frozen steak. When should I season? Before the frozen hamburger hits the grill or after the first turnover, or when, for very valid reasons, I cannot defrost? Okay. Okay, this much we've learned. Professor Blonder did a really interesting experiment. If you take ground meat and you mix the salt in while you're making your burgers, it actually makes the burgers tougher. So you want to salt at the last possible minute. And the salt pretty much is just a surface seasoning. And my gut instinct, never having cooked frozen burgers before, although every time I go to parties, these guys always come out with these stack of burgers with little pieces of paper in between them, throw them on there frozen. I would think you could salt it at either stage. It'll probably stick better if the surface is wet. And if it's wet, then the sodium and chloride will split and ionize and try to penetrate. So if you put it on frozen, it's likely to bounce off a lot, and it's not going to melt and penetrate. So my gut instincts are throw it on the grill, warm it on both sides just a little, and hit it then. That would be my gut instinct. Trey, thank you. I'm glad you go about the book, and I'm glad you're having fun. He asks, he's reading my book. He's got a new Weber Smoky Mountain and a PK. You're well equipped. You can cook anything now, dude. Any tips, he asks. Golly, that book right there over my shoulder, 400 pages of tips, and I'm writing another book full of tips. Plus, I have 2,000 pages on AmazingRibs.com. Depends on what you want tips about. Hamburgers, hot dogs, steaks, chicken, smoking, grilling. Lots of tips. That's what I'm all about, but I don't know what kind of tips to give you here. Let's see. Tips, yes. Okay, 2 tips. 2 essential core concepts you must learn, and you've probably figured this out by now. Thermometers. You've got to have a good thermometer. At least a good instant read thermometer, and if you can back that up with a thermometer with a probe that you can stick into something and walk away, then all the better. Well, here we have a spam call. Thermometer. Nothing will improve your cooking faster than good thermometers. You need to know what temperature the food is at and what temperature your oven or your cooker is at. And the other is learn 2-zone cooking, especially on that. Excuse me. Where's the mute button? Especially on that PK. The PK is really good for setting up for 2 zones. I love it for 2-zone cooking. You can even smoke on that baby. Set up in 2 zones and try to cook almost everything in 2 zones. Learn about reverse sear, and you're good to go. Ryan. Okay. Yeah. Okay. You caught me, Ryan. Do I prefer to do prime rib on the grill or sous vide and finishing on the grill? Okay. I just told you about 2 ribeyes that I did. I have, every Christmas day for the past umpty-dump years, I go to my niece's house, and it's a big gathering, 25, 30 people, and I always bring the prime rib, and I buy USDA prime, and it costs me a month's rent, and or a month's mortgage, and it's worth it. And because I'm going to her house, I'm not going to bring a massive roast and get there 4 hours before the party and stand there on Christmas Day in the Chicago suburbs freezing my ass off, reverse searing it. So I sous vide it. And I get it up to 131, and I keep it in the bag. I put it in a beer cooler, and I bring the whole shooting match over to her house, plug it in, and just keep it warm at 131. And then about 30, 40 minutes before dinner is served, she says, okay, dinner in 30, 40 minutes. I fire up. He has got a Weber Genesis. I get it up to max heat. I sprinkle my rub. And this is the one, the red meat. Oh, it's really good on beef. Sear the snot out of it and get a good dark crust. Bring it in, and it is gorgeous. And I've got pictures of this baby on the website. I'm telling you, it is just breathtakingly beautiful. Perfectly rosy color, edge to edge, with a great dark crust. Now, if I wasn't going over the river and through the woods, would I do that? I would. I would, because it's so easy. It's so easy. I don't have to be running out and checking the temperature of the grill and the smoker. I'm not a huge fan of smoky red meats. Now, brisket, yeah, but steak, lamb, just a kiss of smoke. I don't like a lot of smoke on them. I don't know why. It's just a preference. So I think the sous vide prime rib, then finishing over hot. I would do it over charcoal. I would finish it over charcoal or split logs. But yeah, that's a nice technique. It really is. I tried to smoke ribs at 212 degrees, like the boiling temperature of water, and failed. Was it a dangerous experiment? No, nothing dangerous about 212. I recommend 225, but 212 is close enough. The key to, I don't know what else you did that made it fail. And I don't know what you consider failed. Was it unpleasant tasting? Was it bad texture? Depending on the slab of ribs, 3 to 5 hours, 225, pick it up, and when it cracks in the middle, get it up to about 190 degrees, use a really good rub, put some smoke on it. Golly, go to AmazingRibs.com and in the search box type last meal ribs and follow that technique. That's absolutely your classic ribs technique. Same kind of technique a lot of competitors use. Really simple, straightforward, and you can't miss. I don't know what else you did. And if you want to play 20 questions back and forth, drop me an email. I'm meathead@AmazingRibs.com, and tell me what you did, everything you did, and I'll see if I can find the problem. CBQ says he hears that high temp cheese is the way to go if you're smoking your sausage, I guess, but you're not smoking at a high temp normally. You're smoking at 225, so that's not high temp. Can you vacuum pack the meat in plastic instead of Ziploc? Well, Dan, there are 100 different variations on the word plastic. So I don't know what kind of plastic you're talking about, but generally you want something that's food safe, that doesn't have a lot of plasticizers in it. Most of the time I use bags designed for sous vide, not just Ziploc. There are sous vide bags, and I use a vacuum sealer because I have one. It's not necessary. Ziploc works fine. Ryan Leal is asking, I've got your book. I know from reading it that you're not a big fan of marinades, but you did tell me once that skinless chicken breast is good to marinate. Yeah, huh? Keep from getting dry. What's my go-to marinade? I don't know what makes a good one. I'm going to use a different marinade on chicken than I might use on beef. We marinate skirt steaks. Rather than go into a 30-minute dissertation on marinades, let's just start with the fact that marinades don't penetrate. It's a surface treatment. and it's a wet surface treatment. Marinades can possibly get a 1/16 of an inch into little cracks and crevices. You can take a chicken breast, peel the skin off, soak it in a marinade for 3 days. Cook it up and slice into it, and there is no marinade flavor in the center. Unless you've got salt in the marinade, and the salt may penetrate, because salt penetrates, nothing else does. Salt is just 2 atoms, sodium and chloride. They get wet, they get an electrical charge, ionization, they go deep into the meat. Sugar, 23 atoms at least. They just can't get in. Garlic, forget it, it's huge. Oil, most marinades are oil and vinegar. Oil and water don't mix. What's your meat? 75% water. It's not getting in. So marinades are just a wet surface treatment. And if I'm going to treat the surface, I tend to go towards rubs because they're really concentrated. When the surface is wet, you can't brown it easily. When you throw a wet chicken breast on the grill, the first 10-15 minutes are taken up by evaporating the water. And that cools the meat. So you're going to cook down the marinade, much of which is going to drip off. I go for a poultry rub, and we got a recipe on the website called Simon and Garfunkel, which is a good poultry rub, and that's what I prefer. But one trick I've learned with marinades is put salt in them, because the salt penetrates. And salt is the magic rock and does wonderful things. And I do have a lengthy article on marinades on the website, so I would begin by reading that, and that will fill in the blanks that I didn't give you here. But there are marinade recipes on the site, but not many. And I've got more in the new book because I'm doing some interesting things with marinades. Craig Holman, Lily's Q pimento cheese sausages will change your mind on cheese and sauce. Well, I'll tell you this. I am a huge fan of Lily's Q. It happens to be a barbecue joint here in the Chicago area, and I love them. They do great things. And I'm also a big fan of pimento cheese. Now, that pimento cheese is typically made with cheddar, which is not a high-temperature cheese. So, yeah, I'll check into that. Lily's Q also makes a really good mustard barbecue sauce. Really outstanding mustard barbecue sauce. I really like it. I keep some around here. Jason Holman has a Joule sous vide machine, and he loves it. Me too. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't remember. You're dog-faced pony soldier. Okay. Now I got you. Derek W. McSwain says, too much andouille. I don't know what you're referring to, but I don't think there is such a thing as too much andouille. Oh, my God. Andouille is absolutely my favorite sausage on earth. And I think there's a recipe on them. Yes, there's a recipe for andouille on the website. And I think we have a cheater's version called hamdouille. Andouille has some cured pork in it. And another name for cured pork is ham. And so instead of taking ham, curing it, taking uncured ham, blending the two, grinding them up, adding all the seasonings, smoking them, I did ham and pork, blending them up, and it works really good. Hamdouille, and a little less effort. Derek, there's no such thing as too much andouille. I think from your comment you agree. Yeah, Rhodes Davis. You're Roadhog. Okay. He's also in the Pitmaster Club. Gosh, got a nice turnout from my gang tonight. He loves the Pitmaster Club and the Show Us What You're Cooking section. That is just porn. The members are really good cooks. I've learned a thing or two from them. And they post pictures of things they cook. Oh, my God. Our newsletter, just to the members, has a huge section to show us what you're cooking every week or every month. And it is just breathtaking. And what's cool about it, Rhodes, is that you guys are getting really good with your cameras. These smartphones are really competent, capable cameras. And the pictures you guys are taking of your food are magazine quality. I just get really turned on looking at them. Yeah, TR Doc is saying that he's had some really good luck with just salt and pepper on pork. You know, salt's the magic rock. Salt amplifies all flavors without altering them. Garlic changes the flavor profile. Sugar changes the profile. Pepper changes it. Salt just amplifies. It turns it up to 11. And it helps it hold on to moisture. So salt is just magical. And I've written at length about the magic rock. And pepper just seems to go with it. And yes, I mean, salt and pepper on a steak. Why not salt and pepper on a pork chop? Mm-hmm. And when you go down to Texas, a lot of the ribs down there are just salt and pepper. That's all you need. Yeah, vinegar and some acid and marinade can help tenderize, but only tenderizes the surface. Again, it's not getting in. And if you leave it on too long, it makes the surface mushy. So yes, I do have a formula for a basic marinade, and acid is in the formula. You just got to be careful. Oh, okay, now I get it. Derek's telling me that the sneezing fit I had 10 minutes ago was due to the andouille. I wish. I haven't had andouille in a long time. You know, now I got a Jones for it. CBBQ, you're on YouTube, and T-Rock Doc 21 is also a member. He's asking who else is members. Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. Mr. Silver Bart, any noticeable difference between 30-day aged beef and 60-day aged beef? Yes. Yeah. Now, I presume you're talking about dry aged. Wet aged, not a huge difference. Dry aging is mostly enzymatic. It depends on how it's aged. A lot of it. Gosh, can I find those pictures? All right, I'm going to take a minute here and see if I can find... stand by. Yeah. Okay. Now, where are the rest of them? Okay. That didn't work. Stand by. Okay, I'm there. Now, where are the rest of them? Search results for Halstead. Where the hell? Okay, this is just not... No. Okay, one more moment. Wow. No, I'm just not getting... Well, I was looking for some pictures of really moldy steaks that I took at Allen Brothers warehouse and butcher. Allen Brothers is a boutique meat purveyor, and they have incredible aging cellars, and they do a wonderful job on aging beef. And you should get their catalog because they've gone past beef into heritage hogs and seafood, lamb, and Wagyu beef. And just Google Allen Brothers. You can browse around. Sign up for their catalogs. They're really beautiful. It's porn. And I've toured their place, and they have their beef aging cellars. Some of the beef, it looks like a sheep. It's just covered with woolly mold. It's really common in the aging process. My little business, we hit an important benchmark in our history a couple of years ago. And my team is scattered between here, Mexico, New Zealand, but there's 3 or 4 of us here in the Chicago area. And I took them all out to dinner at a restaurant that specializes in aging beef. And we had like 4 or 5 different ages of steak, side by side. And one of the cool things is all their beef comes from the same herd with the same sire. So that variable was minimized. And my preference was on the low end of the aging scale, like 28, 30, 35 days. When you start getting up into 60 and 80 and so on, it doesn't taste like beef anymore. It gets really unusual, funky. And before you go out, and by the way, the chef at this restaurant, this was David Burke's Prime House. It's since closed, and the chef, we hired him to write about aging beef for us, and he has just posted a review of the Steak Ager, which is a little mini fridge that is designed for aging steak, and also the Umai bag system, and he's just done both reviews for us, and he has more. But the caveat is, before you go into aging steak or invest in it, go find a restaurant that does have aged beef, or a grocer that has aged beef, and buy different ages and try them. And we had, like 4 of us, so we bought like 4 or 5 different steaks and tasted them all to find out if you like it or not, because it's a funky character. I mean, I know a lot of people don't like lamb. I love lamb. It's not funky, but sheep can be funky. Lamb is not. But in any case, it tastes as different from regular beef as lamb does. And lamb's a red meat. So it doesn't taste like lamb. I'm just using this as an analogy. It tastes significantly different. So you'll want to taste them to decide if you like it. You may not like it. And if you don't like it, all the better, because it's cheaper not to like aged steak. Try finding some aged beef and deciding. To me, I prefer the short end of the aging steak. Once it gets way out there in the 30-day or longer, the 50, 60-day, it's starting to get really funky. Oh, that's right. I forgot. Dan Mancuso's a member. TR Doc 21 is Dogface Pony. We got a number of our members here. Thank you very much for popping in. If you're not a member, you can get a 30-day free trial. And with that, you get at least your choice of one, I think, of the free ebooks. And when you join, you get all 6. But there's all kinds of other stuff. We got discounts from manufacturers. Lots of really good information. A lot of good. Go take the 30-day trial. We don't ask for a credit card. And you know what? If you pay for it and you don't like it, we give refunds. No questions asked. Yeah, Rich says good photography too. Yeah, plenty of that. Jerry Dauphine, how do I feel about injecting meat, particularly turkey, before putting on the smoker? It depends on what you're injecting with.
I've heard of people injecting turkey with Dr. Pepper. That just sounds Frankenstein to me. But injecting with salt is really smart. Salt, as I mentioned, it alters proteins and helps it hold on to moisture. And it amplifies flavor. So it makes some sense to take a brisket or a turkey breast and inject it with some salt. And I have, go to AmazingRibs.com, type injection or injecting into the search box, and I've got some articles and some recipes for injections. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I just don't want to, I guess I'm a bit of a purist. I want turkey to taste like turkey. I want chicken to taste like chicken. I don't need turkey tasting like Dr. Pepper. Yeah. Craig Holman is going to Austin to see Springsteen in a few weeks. Any barbecue recommendations beside Franklin? Yeah. Austin is just the center. It's Constantinople. It is the locus of great barbecue. Franklin is the one that people sit and wait for around the block, and it's worth it. Really good. But there's at least a half a dozen other good ones in the area. I did a review of them about 6 or 8 years ago, and since I did it, I've been hearing great things about at least another half a dozen. Here's what I'd recommend. Go find Texas Monthly magazine online, and once a year they do the 50 best barbecue restaurants in Texas. Or no, it's every couple or 3 years, and they just did it a few months ago. And Daniel Vaughn writes that column, and he's brilliant. I know Daniel very well. I've spent time bouncing around the state of Texas with him. So I can mention a few, and just outside of Austin is Lockhart, where there's another bunch of really good barbecue joints. It's, I think, about an hour drive from Austin. Go look at the 50 best barbecue restaurants in Texas on Texas Monthly, and if for some reason or other you can't get it because they want you to be a member or something, drop me an email and I'll get you that information. But that would be because I can't remember the names of them, but there's several, like a half a dozen, that people have been ranting and raving about that I've never been to. Leroy and Lewis and Lewis Blacks. Yeah, I've heard Lewis Blacks is really good. I don't know about Leroy and Lewis, but yeah. And Jerry Dauphiné saying check out Michael Simon's article about barbecue. Simon's, Symons, barbecue in Texas. Yeah, Chef Simon's is really smart and really good. But I think Michael Vaughn is probably the answer. He would be my go-to. Craig Holman points out, yes, if you join the Pitmaster Club, you get one of these. It's $10 on Amazon. It's a magnet, and it has like 90 important temperatures, which you can never remember. And so it's got them all there, both chef temperatures and USDA recommended temperatures, and there's a big difference often. Oh man, Jim Tortorella, you're in the suburban area here, aren't you? You raise meat chickens each year, homegrown, taste like chicken, 7 to 10 pounds. Oh man, we got to get to know each other. There's a really good book. I'm looking at my bookshelf, hoping. Look at these bookshelves here. These are all barbecue books. There's a book that Larry Olmsted wrote. Larry writes for Forbes, and it's Real Food, Fake Food. What the hell's the name of that book? I don't see it here. Really a good book, though. Wait a second. I know I can find that real fast. Excellent book. I want you all to go read it, and I'll find it for you. There it is. Fake Food. Oh, it's called Real Food, Fake Food by Larry Olmsted, Olmsted. Okay, here we go with the old screen sharing again. There it is. There's the cover. Brilliant book. And in this book, he has a big chapter about what happened to chicken. And it's really fascinating how the chicken industry bred chickens, altered their genetics, altered their body shape and size, and why, and what they were looking for, and it just really fascinating. I'm 73 years old, and I can remember as a boy, beef and chicken tasted different than it does today. And that's because they're grown differently today. And he talks about that in the book. And Jim, you probably have like real chicken. All right, guys, it's 8:38, and we've been at it for 90 minutes or so. I normally go to 9 or so, but I have a deadline on the first draft of my book on Wednesday, and I've been burning the midnight oil, and I've been trying to get a good night's sleep, and of course I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to remember what I forgot. So if you will excuse me for cutting out a few minutes early, I want to get some more work done, and then I want to try to get a good night's sleep and get a good book out to you guys next year. So thank you very much for coming once again. These are always fun. Your questions are always fascinating. And I hope you enjoyed and learned a thing or two. If you feel adventurous, go to AmazingRibs.com. Take the free 30-day trial in the Pitmaster Club. You get a free ebook, and if you don't like it, you can bail. But if you decide it's worth $35 a year, and it should be, we try to deliver something that's worthwhile. I think you'll enjoy yourselves. So thank you very much. Have a good night and a good weekend. And I hope your favorite team wins this weekend.
That's all for now, folks. Thanks for staying awake, and please visit AmazingRibs.com for the articles, recipes, and reviews mentioned in this chat with the BBQ Whisperer and Hedonism Evangelist from AmazingRibs.com, the planet's biggest and baddest barbecue and grilling website, Meathead.
It's a